Welcome to Podsauce. I'm Dax Holt.
I am Alesha Renee.
This is your podcast discovery show is what this is.
Yes, it is.
We're here to recommend all the good stuff that's out there floating around in the universe of podcasts.
Out here in these streets, these podcast streets. Dax, I have a podcast out there for all of my true crime lovers.
Which you know there's millions of them.
Plethora. This podcast is called Dark Arenas, a true crime podcast. In this podcast, have you guys ever wanted to know what it was like to track down fugitives, hunt child abductors? You know, I have an accent, so work with me. Conduct espionage and such. Look and wonder no further. Dark Arenas is a podcast that basically covers that. Have you ever wanted to know, who is Jack Ryan real? Did Jason Bourne come from a particular person? So in one of the episodes, episode 4, titled Game of Spies, you know, the host, Delilah, she travels all around the globe speaking to ATF agents. She speaks to, former CIA director, collects all types of interviews and information from these people and breaks down like what happens in real cases. So it's such a dope podcast.
You had me at, is there a real Jack Ryan out there?
Yeah.
Yes, and I need to listen to the podcast.
Uh-huh.
Do you know if she actually found anyone out there like that? Because that's what I want to know.
Well, episode 8, Bodies Are Everywhere. Deep dive into the dark arena of dissecting death. In today's episode, nationally consulted forensic anthropologist Dr. Heather Walsh-Harney sits down. She talks about bodies, burials, bloodshed, and so much more. I mean, that it's happening in people's own backyards. So Dark Arenas, hosted by Delilah D'Ambria. I'm here for it.
I am here for it as well. And if you guys want to check it out, head on over to podsauce.com. We will put a link up directly to, what was it called again?
I think we should. I think we should put.
Arenas.
Yeah, Dark Arenas. But I think we should put the link to episode 4 because that just looks. Yes.
Awesome. And we got a great show coming up for you.
Yeah,
I'm excited. We're gonna get, I guess, one of my picks in today.
Yeah, we're gonna get one of your picks in today, and I'm looking forward to. I think we have a really good interview for everyone else also. So don't go anywhere, guys. We got more. This is Podsauce. Welcome back to Podsauce, everyone. I am Alesha Renee.
And I'm Dax Holt.
This is your podcast discovery show. Speaking of discovering podcasts, got a pick, Dax.
I have been so excited to tell you about this pick. Angie can attest to this because I've been texting her saying that I can't wait to tell you about this one.
Yeah.
So this one came to me, it was like a commercial inside of another podcast that I liked. And
I know that hustle.
And it sounded good, and I checked it out, and I was not disappointed.
What's the name of it?
So my podcast pick for this week is called Supernatural with Ashley Flowers.
Okay, now.
Do you know Ashley Flowers? Name sounds familiar.
Yeah, name sounds familiar.
She hosts Crime Junkie.
That's what it is. Yes.
So she's already massive in the podcast space.
For sure.
Is one of the biggest podcasts out there, but she hosts this other one called Supernatural, which dives into the strange and surreal to explain some of the world's most bizarre and true crime occurrences. We're talking vampires.
No.
Witches.
No.
Spirits. Ghosts. Yes!
Wait, you signed up for demons?
I didn't say demons.
Spirits?
Doesn't mean they're bad.
True. True. Continue. Pop, you got me together.
No, it's the way that she talks about it. So she dives into it and she gives like examples of how it could be true and also how it could have been a figment of the person's imagination and why both sides have kind of fought over this occurrence and why there's a mystery surrounding it for so many years.
Give me the skinny on the episode you checked out.
I checked out one which is called the Fox Sisters, and it was two sisters, young sisters, who were basically clairvoyants that could speak to the dead. They came across their talents, I guess, to speak to the dead. They came across their gifts because someone was knocking on their walls, and they started to realize that the knockings were trying to get their attention, and then they started using basically like Morse code to figure out the person's name and found out that this guy was some peddler who showed up at this house years earlier and was killed, and his body was in the basement. They found his body in the basement.
In the house that they're currently in?
House.
You are lying. So he was knocking like, ladies.
Let me out.
I'm down here. Come scoop me out the ground.
But the family had like tried to relocate, and they basically started to realize that these girls, they were talking to dead people everywhere they went.
You're lying.
Then they became international superstars because people wanted to see them talk to loved ones.
I wonder if these people are the basis of Ghost Whisperer.
I don't know.
What was that? Were you Shaggy in 2.27? Scooby-Doo.
It wasn't me. Wrong Shaggy?
Wrong Shaggy. I was definitely on the Scooby-Doo, but here we go.
Anyway, so another great episode I listened to was The New England Vampire Girl, The Bell Witch. The Bell Witch I was listening to this morning, and
oh, you really went down the rabbit hole.
They were so good.
Supernatural? Oh.
Supernatural with Ashley Flowers. That is my pick for this week. Check it out. She is a phenomenal host, but I just love how she dissects these phenomenons.
We need her on the show.
Yes.
We do.
How do we get Ashley Flowers in this place?
We need to pimp ourselves out so we can get Ashley Flowers on here because we've mentioned quite a few of her podcasts, and I definitely want to have great conversation with her about her love of podcasts. So guys, if you want to find out more about Supernatural, head over to podsauce.com. We're going to put a link up actually to what was the first episode that you spoke about? That was
with
a good
the
one.
Fox sisters.
The Fox sisters.
We'll put a link up there, and don't forget to sign up for our newsletter so we can just send these recommendations straight to your email box.
Absolutely. Don't go anywhere, guys. We have more coming up next. This is Podsauce.
We got a good one for you today. You know we like our serial killer kind of topics, the podcasts that are creepy. I love it.
True crime is like such a huge, huge category out there. I don't know if that's a good indication or a bad indication
Hey,
of how
listen,
people have been navigating the pandemic, but yeah.
It is like the most popular topic
It is.
on podcasts.
Very much so. Very much so.
Why not bring in a creator that has made his life following the serial killers and just the creepy,
all
the
things
creepiness,
true
crime.
Yes.
Exactly.
And a best-selling author, if I don't mind adding that little in there too.
So we want to welcome M. Williams Phelps. His podcast is Crossing the Line, which is just crushing it right now.
Yeah.
Should we call you M? What do you want us to call you?
Well, you can call me Matthew. That's my first name, and thank you for that introduction. I appreciate it.
We try to add a little razzle dazzle to it. So Matthew, for people who may not be familiar with Crossing the Line, can you give us the elevator pitch on what your podcast is about?
Crossing the Line is the title is me crossing the line into murder stories, missing person cases, and things that enrage me in this space, not the podcasting space, but true crime in general. So, I've spent 20 years in this business of true crime, and so I do complete murder stories from start to finish in 30, 40 minutes. I do missing person cases, and I talk about topical true crime things that are going on today.
How did you get into true crime? And I mean, going way back to your journalistic background, how did you get into this? I feel that is such a heavy topic that I don't know if I could stick with it on a daily basis. So how have you done that?
Yes.
Well, Dax, I mean, it has broken me in the past, and we could talk about that a little bit later. But I wish I had a romantic, sexy story about getting into it, but I didn't know I was getting into true crime the day before I got into true crime. And I say that because, I was a writer. I had a music column, a column about music. I wrote about politics. I wrote about people. And I just latched onto this story that happened to be near me in Springfield, Massachusetts. I lived in Connecticut at the time, over the border, and this woman, really good-looking, young, 30-something, blonde woman, married to a fireman, 2 kids, a boat, nice little house in Northampton, Massachusetts, was on trial for killing 7 people. So I was interested in the story.
Wait,
of what happened.
She was on trial for killing 7 people?
Yeah, I in the book I wrote, I mean, I think she killed probably 100. Not
Spectacular.
just.
She was a serial killer. And I only say that because
Ye-
you don't hear often, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that a woman is a serial killer. So, geez.
Very rare.
Yeah.
Yeah, female serial killers are very rare. I've written several books about female serial killers, and I was just interested in that story, and I wrote a book about it. And the next thing I know, I'm a true crime writer. I was writing a book about an interesting story, and then it was a success, that book. So my publisher's like, "Hey, let's get some more true crime," and bang, I'm the true crime guy. So I was a journalist going in, and I had a mentor, and I became an investigative journalist along the way. Writing, 45 books now.
Can I tell you an episode of your podcast that I really enjoyed, which was
Sure.
the Dorothea Puente episode.
Yeah.
So Dorothea is an older lady. Well, she looked older. She was only, what, 51 or something, but she looked 70. She was
Yeah,
this little
Miss
old
Doubtfire.
lady on the block, just killing people left and right.
Wow.
Burying them in her backyard.
But what I found really interesting about this episode was them diving into the female serial killer, because like what you said, you were shocked.
Yeah.
I was also shocked.
Yeah.
And one thing that you said, Matthew, during this episode is that female serial killers kill for financial gain, whereas male serial killers kill for fun. And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I write a lot about female murderers, number one, because it's, as a writer, as a researcher, there's more to it than when a male kills. And when you now bring in the female serial killer, it generally is for financial gain. But I've written books about female serial killers who did it because they enjoyed it. It's
Wow.
fun. They wanted to kill.
And you also had a very scary, shocking statistic during that episode of how many serial killers live currently in major cities. Would you like to inform our audience of that statistic?
Yeah, the FBI, and I agree from my research, my anecdotal research on the ground, traveling all over this country, that there's 1 to 2 serial killers working in every major city across this country, maybe more. I know just in Connecticut, around where I am, there's several working as we speak, and I say working, but killing.
So,
I know, it's like you gotta like process it,
Yeah,
right?
'cause
That's a big number.
it's extremely alarming, especially since just from the stories that we're talking about right now, a lot of these people, I really hate to say people, these monsters, sorry, but are very unassuming. They walk around in everyday life. I mean, the first person that you mentioned is a woman, white, blonde,
Dorothea
kids,
was an
married to-
old white lady on the
Right.
block taking care of senior citizens. She had a home where people would come send their moms, their dads, or grandpas,
Yeah.
and she would then either kill them or kill transients that were walking down the street, lure them in, kill them, and bury them in her backyard. I mean, you would never suspect this little old lady.
And I think that
Unassuming is a great word for it. It really is. Because Kristen Gilbert, the woman I mentioned, the blonde woman, she volunteered at the homeless shelter. She ran a Secret Santa program, and it's all part of the ruse, But I do want to say that serial killing is very, very, very rare. So it's not something that is, it's very rare.
it's I will say the thing that makes your podcast different, because I do have a challenging time, full disclosure, dealing with murder and all of those other
Sure.
things, which is why like I
Sure.
said, I wanted to pivot when I was going to school for law. Why I pivoted away from that. Obviously, talking about and exposing stories like this can help other people become aware of the people that they surround themselves with. If something doesn't feel right, if something feels
Absolutely.
off, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Because all too often we second guess the little old lady and our feelings towards how come I feel something is off with this woman, and it's just a gentle old lady. Help, you know what I mean?
Trust your gut.
Trust your
Trust in any situation.
Yeah.
You know, I just published a book with Deborah Newell, the woman from the Dirty John case.
Yeah.
I wrote her memoir, if you will, for her. And the one thing I said in that book was, you know, if you're online dating, especially if you're a female, you know, you have every right to get the person's number and Google them, the reverse number, look them up, and trust your gut. Your gut. I read that your gut has the same types of cells as your brain. So that's where we get that gut instinct from. You know, it's real. Trust it.
Matthew, before we let you go, you know, we are a podcast discovery show. So one of our big things that we like to give back to people is discovering new podcasts. So
Sure.
You being a creator, is there any podcast that you're listening to that you could recommend to our audience?
Sure. I love this podcast, and I learned a lot from it, called Uncover. It's a Canadian journalist who digs into cases that other people just don't cover. Like one of his seasons was about a serial killer killing homosexuals, gays in Toronto, and you know, no one covered that story, you know, and he dug in, and I just love the guy. I love his work. And the weekly one that I like, and Uncover's a narrative podcast. The weekly that I like, unfortunately, it's a popular one.
It's okay. We do them all.
Yeah, My Favorite Murder. I mean, to me, they do it right. They do it right. And you know, I'm not going to bash any podcasts, but you know, some do not do it right, and My Favorite Murder gets it right, and I appreciate that.
Do you listen to any podcasts that aren't about death?
I do. I wish I had names for you, but I listen to a lot. I listen to a lot of self-help. I'm 26 years sober, so I listen to some of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And meditation stuff. You know, you know, it's all a balance for me. You know, the light and the dark. You know, I need to balance it. So
Absolutely.
So yeah, I do listen to lighter stuff.
I think you'll like. I want to put one on your plate. I think you'll like Dropping Gems with Debbie Brown. It's meditative. It's self-help, so it's all encompassing what you just mentioned. And then a fan favorite and a show favorite is It's Always the Husband. So they add comedy, you know, when they talk about, and they basically talk about reenactments of actual true crimes. So you'll get some comedy there, you'll get some light. Because I'm very curious how you balance out those spaces and those energies in that world, because you're in it so deep, you know, and for so long. It's funny.
It's always the husband. I have to tell you one thing before we go about that. In season 1 of Paper Ghosts, you know, I was interviewing this detective, and we were talking about, you know, a wife being murdered, and he's like, "Look, Phelps," he's like, "Look, if a wife is murdered, right, and you throw a dart at a dartboard, 99 times out of 100, you're gonna hit the husband."
Right.
You know?
You're gonna hit him.
Very, very true. Well, Matthew, thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate it. And for any of our audience that would like to check out Crossing the Line, head on over to podsauce.com. We'll have a link up there directing you straight to his podcast as well as his podcast recommendations. So,
true crime perspective that we can get behind. I like it.
We will be right back.
Don't go anywhere, guys. This is Podsauce. Welcome back to Podsauce, everyone. I am Alesha Renee.
And I'm Dax Holt. This is your podcast discovery show.
Speaking of podcast discovery, you have a done in a day.
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 A.
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 Done
What do you
in a
want
day.
from me?
You added an extra A. It wasn't even necessary,
I don't even know
G.
what we're doing. Let me just. This is gonna take more than a day to get through this thing.
Okay.
Let me get to my done in a day because it's a good one this week.
I did see some of the clips. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so my done in a day this week is called Even the Rich.
Talk to me.
You know I love my celebrity content.
Yeah, you do.
I've been dabbling in it for years and years,
Getting
but this
all the
one,
big coins.
this one's good. This one they focus on a different celebrity or dynasty each week.
Ooh.
Basically, they pull back the curtain and chat about some of the crazy relationships, celebrities that are out there, and what's either made them successful or made them crash.
Okay, talk to me.
So one of the episodes is Beyoncé and Jay-Z.
The dynasty continues. The Rock is in the building. I've been waiting for you. I've been waiting for that. Been waiting for it. It was sitting.
So basically, they tell you the story of how the two biggest stars on the planet came together, have created this monstrous empire, and almost lost it all. So not only do you get some Beyonce and Jay-Z in there, they've got the making of Madonna and how this simple Catholic girl in New York comes to be one of the biggest stars on the planet.
Yeah.
What I liked was their tagline on that. They said, how does she do it? And the answer is simple. By any means necessary.
I know that's right. I'm definitely curious to check that out. I love Madonna.
And if you're into Ben and Jen, they dissect the whole relationship between Ben and Jennifer, the old one, the new one, everything in between. So if you are into celebrity content, you like the relationships, you like seeing the rise of celebrities, this would be the podcast for you. And when we say done in a day, it's because they're super short. You can binge the episodes. Sometimes the series, I guess, on Jay-Z and Beyoncé, they last a couple episodes. So you might get 5 episodes based on one particular
But they're just
celebrity.
quick
But they're
moving.
quick. You get in, you get out. So you could technically finish one in a day.
So if you guys want to find out more about Dax's Done in a Day pick, Even the Rich, then head over to podsauce.com. And while you were there, tell them what to do, Dax.
Well, you can sign up for our newsletter. Number 1, check it out and put your address in. We will shoot over all of our recommendations. As well as while you're on podsauce.com, you can click on all the links directly to podcasts that we've recommended that have been in our picks, recommendations from our guests. We got it all there. That's the place you want to be.
And speaking of guests, thank you so much to Matthew Phelps, the host of Crossing the Line, for joining us today on Podsauce.
And don't forget to follow us on social media. We've got Facebook, Instagram. We got it all. Find us at The Podsauce. You can also find me personally at Dax Holt.
And you can find me at I Am Alesha Renee. And until next time, thank you all so much for listening, for watching, just for joining us. Take care of yourselves. Bye.